a field trip to Bajor, a Deep Space Nine custody battle, and finally, the return of Garak. Welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton. My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Deep Space Nine Season 2, Episode 5, called Cardassians. So, Garak better join us for this one. How you doing, Cirroc?
I'm good, man. That was a good episode, I thought.
Yeah. Directed by Cliff Bole, by the way.
Cliff Bole. Yeah, I don't remember much of Cliff Bole. Sorry, Cliff. But then again, I wasn't in this episode either, so I didn't
he doesn't
get any
remember
directions.
you then either.
He doesn't remember me either. Which is one of the critiques I have. I felt like I should have been in this episode. It felt like Sisko would have had like a moment to have a conversation with his son about, just the appreciation of fatherhood or whatever it was that he wanted to talk about. I felt like there was a moment that they missed there.
Who better to talk to a kid than another kid?
Exactly.
I mean, they had Molly. What's this 16-year-old kid going to do playing with a toddler? He's like, oh yeah, he's been playing with Molly all day. I was like, she's fucking 4.
She's like 3 or 4, right? She's like 4 years old.
Yeah.
Playing with her or babysitting her. Yeah, that was kind of interesting that they said that too. They played it over into the Keiko O'Brien household, and they made it more about that. Instead, they could have, I thought, and they missed the opportunity to have Jake involved and have the Sisko Jake conversations kind of emerge out of it. But nonetheless, they did do a good job tackling the issue about adoption and raising a kid, parenting, and a lot of these issues got brought up in this episode, which I thought were good.
It was a very racially charged episode. Like there was a lot of like, just kind of like Duet was last season. Right. It was about racism. It was about not just that the Bajorans raised this Cardassian boy to hate his own people, but on top of that, it really, I mean, I've been saying this since the beginning. I don't think people realize, but Miles O'Brien, for how much we love him, they made him a racist against Cardassians. Like he was always like, these damn Cardies, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And which was interesting because in the scene they had him face to face with the boy, and he's like, hey, what do you think about the Cardassians? And he's like, well, And I just was they should have flashed all the times that he was speaking about the Cardassians in the past episodes. A montage. Like, let me think. What do I think about him?
Or as Aaron would call it, a Hugh montage.
Hugh montage. Yeah, I thought that would have been great, man. I think that, they touched on all of those issues, like you said, with race being one of the main factors. And, how do you raise a child and what do you teach a child? There was one line in which the Bajoran father of the boy said to Garak and Bashir, I'm not going to apologize for telling him the truth. I think he told that to Sisko. He says, I'm not apologizing for telling him the truth. And that was kind of a poignant line for me because, they were asking him, what did you tell this boy? What did you tell him, to make him dislike Cardassians? And he's like, I just told him the truth, what they really did to us. And that's kind of an interesting thing in itself, telling the truth. When do you tell the truth? Is it appropriate, and how and where?
And also the truth is extremely subjective.
Whose truth is right? Is that what you mean?
It's kind of like if you watch these true crime dramas or anything like that, like the real documentaries, like you'll notice both parties, the defendant and the whatever it is, the accuser, they're both pretty much saying the same thing that happened, but just from their own point of view is a little bit different. They say, yeah, of course I did that, because she was acting like this. And she's saying, well, of course I did that because he was acting like that, and as Garak said, which was really important, he mentions that at the very, very end. He says something to the effect of, I don't usually tell the truth because, the truth is subjective. Let me see if I wrote that exact quote down.
Yeah, that was one of the things that was popping up, is the truth. And I thought that Siddig did a great job. I think this was his best performance thus far, in my period, estimation. I felt like his performance was really good. He played his soul nuances in a way that was very believable. I like the interchange between him and Sisko and Ops when he interrupts Sisko to talk to Gul Dukat. And those looks were just amazing.
They gave Sisko some comedy in there, man.
They did. They did, yeah.
That was really
good. They gave him some comedy, exactly. He said, "No, this is the highlight of my day."
That was the best line.
But don't make sure it doesn't happen again.
I was saving that for a little later, but let's see. He says, what did he say? Oh, he goes, "Don't apologize. It's been the highlight of my day."
Yeah,
like he's the highlight. Sarcastic.
He's so sarcastic. Yeah.
He made another sarcastic quip when Bashir shows up to his place at 2 a.m, and he's like, "Oh, hey, sorry to wake you up, but I just need to go and borrow a car real quick."
I need to run about. I need to run about. Yeah.
To go to Bajor with Garak real quick, and Sisko says, "Of course. Will one be enough?"
Yeah. Will one be enough? Is there anything else I could do for you?
That reminded me of for those of you that have watched Friday, the awesome '90s comedy with Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. And it's like that girl, Felicia, where the whole "Bye Felicia" thing came from. They're like, he's like, Chris is like, "What do you want anyway, man?" And she says, "Oh, I need to borrow your car right quick."
Oh yeah.
By the way, I just borrow a runabout, no big deal.
Yeah, I just need to run about real quick. No, I thought there was another moment there, just a slight moment, but Bashir comes and interrupts the adjudication that Sisko is doing for the kid, and Gul Dukat looks over at Sisko and he says, "It appears you lost control."
Yeah,
and he looks back and says, "Yeah, it does appear I lost control."
Yeah, he does. He goes, Dukat says, I quoted that one too. He says, "This is irrelevant and insulting. Commander, you have lost control here." And
yeah,
like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
whatever.
Which is another like subtle element of Sisko's leadership style that I really enjoy. There are moments where he takes the back seat and he allows other characters to get their shine on, if you will, and that just shows to me a kind of leadership that I like personally, where it's not a leadership style where somebody knows everything and they shut you down and don't allow other people's input. It's the kind of leadership style where it's like, yeah, okay, I have the ability to do that, but I'm going to withhold that because I believe that you have something to, of value to add to this discussion. And that's what Sisko to me does a really good job of, really balancing the hard with the soft.
Yeah. And there's a real confidence in a true leader being able to say, "Yeah, I messed up," or "Yeah, I might be wrong," or "Yeah, I lost control," rather than somebody that's insecure and will never admit,
"I haven't lost control. I'm in control of this whole
thing.
You
lost control.
You lost control, and you're out of order." Yeah.
No, it's a great quality in a leader. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. And so I thought everybody, played those elements really well. I also have to put another shout out to Gul Dukat, who just does this really, it's just, he oozes this menacing asshole that you just want to punch in his face, right?
Yeah.
And he's
asshole, yeah.
Yeah, but he's also like really good and confident, and his leadership is also not questioned. His authority is not something that you question. It's something that you can see, and you're like, okay, this guy is clearly the boss here, and he doesn't give ground, but he sometimes will, acquiesce.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't make him any less tough.
Yeah, but he's so deliciously slimy. Like he
He,
just,
yeah, you love to hate him. He's a guy that
yeah,
you love to hate, which makes him just such a superb actor because that's what we're supposed to be feeling when we see him. So he's getting the job done like tremendously well. I thought it was funny when he turned around and walked out of the whole thing. He's like,
and he
"All
gave
right."
Garak a look,
He
a
gave
hard
Garrick
look,
the long, hard look. They looked at each other. I thought he was going to swing on him almost. It was like one of those moves.
and Garrick's just
Uh,
like,
hmm,
smiley
got
face.
you. I won. I won.
Garrick's like, I haven't said a word. He's like, all I did was listen to Bashir connect the dots, in his mind.
Yeah, and we also get to see Garrick as being this um, really smart person, you know, when he breaks into the computer system to look up the database to find out, which children have been there and to find the name of this kid. He shows a really high level of intelligence while he's
Mm-hmm.
going through that process. He's very competent in that way, and he's also endearing. You kind of like, oh man, I like this guy. He looks like the bad guy, but he's doing the right things, and
Yeah.
it's you know
And the thing is with Andy Robinson and Mark Alimo, like Cardassians are so rich of characters for good acting. You know what I mean? And I
mhm.
find myself being mesmerized with being captivated by like every line they say. Every line they say as an actor, I watch it, I go, oh, that was such an interesting way to say that. Like even if the line's just two words, like, oh yes, they'll be like, oh yes, or something like that. I've noticed Bashir also does that, more so in later years. Sometimes you only have two words. Sometimes Bashir's line is yes, sir, but he has to like do something with that. So if he's annoyed, he goes, yes, sir, or something like that. It's like
Yeah.
you're doing something with those two lines. And that's what
Yeah,
these Cardassian actors do so well is they
yeah,
really chew it up. They really do a lot with a little.
yeah. And I thought the father of this Cardassian kid who guest starred on this episode did a really great job as a guest star. Once again, we have such a high level of quality when it comes to our guest stars, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're always finding ourselves mesmerized by the performances of this guy that's a one-day player, or maybe just there for the week,
Totally.
and you might not see them again, but yet they leave these great performances behind, and it allows all the other actors to kind of shine in different ways. Um, but
I
yeah,
noticed.
the father was great, I thought.
I noticed, by the way, a little nod to our boy Aron Eisenberg there was something that reminded me of him, and I was like, okay, this Cardassian kid is supposed to be 12 years old. It's obviously a short 25-year-old. It's like it's a short. They're like, hey, it worked for Nog. We got to just if you got
But
enough.
he's got enough makeup on. Yeah, you could.
Exactly, it could be a 30-year-old dude with
Yeah,
kids. What do
yeah.
we care?
Another person that I thought would be well placed in this episode,
Yeah,
Nog, because
Jake
once
and
again,
Nog.
it felt like it was our age demographic
How great
that they
would it
were
have
dealing
been?
with.
How great would it have been if Jake and Nog meet this Cardassian kid, and the Cardassian kid kind of tells them the situation, and they're like, "Oh, that's weird," and he leaves, and Jake and Nog are on opposite sides of that fence.
Right.
We're like Nog is saying, "Well, no,
He should
Cardassians are
stay. Yeah,
bad," or something like
yeah.
that,
He
and you're
should stay
saying,
with his new parents, and I'm saying, well, but that's his father, and
"Yes,
and
exactly."
that would have been a great little exchange. And
Ah,
like I
so
said,
good.
you have an age demographic that's relative to the kids on the show. So you would think that the younger kids on the show would have an access and opportunity to be involved in the storyline, and that's what I
Mhm.
felt like was one of the big elements missing. And even when they brought it to the O'Briens, Molly wasn't even featured, so you didn't even see her. It was
Yeah, we
just,
didn't see.
no,
Did we
it
even see
was
her at
just
all?
talked about it through
Yeah.
exposition. So they just talked, and today they were over there playing. So we didn't even get that, and I thought it was a perfect opportunity to do something like that. The other thing that actually jumped out at me, which I thought went unanswered in this episode, was the kids that they found at the orphanage on Bajor. When they found those kids and they
Mhm.
came out and they were like, "Are you here to take us?" I felt so bad for those kids. And then they just let it go. They're like, all right, no, we're not here for you guys.
It's just another Kaiopaka moment of like, well, what happened to those kids? And they're like, you fill in the blank.
Figure it out. Yeah, something like that.
They lived happily ever after, or they all got slaughtered somewhere in the middle, whatever.
Something. I thought they would give us something that would just say, hey, all right, well, then we need to go back to that camp and get all the kids and clear this mess up, because this has been going on too long or whatever. And, something to that effect I thought was going to happen.
You're right. That's just like 2 lines at the end of the episode. Sisko could say, and I understand that there are a lot of children, or Bashir says, Commander, before we go, I just want to let you know that blah, 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 blah.
We saw other kids there, and we need to find out who they are.
Yeah, and
who their
Sisko says, see to it that they're given options to something. And then we go, closed book.
Yeah. Any objections, Dukat? No. And he walks out.
Dukat would say something like, even if I did have objections, would you listen? And the door's already closing on him. Like
exactly. And that would now check off that box for me of like, poor kids just come out of the thing, and you don't just turn your back and say, all right, well, too bad for you guys. We're only here for the one kid that we got. And all you guys got to deal with it. Some of those kids looked younger than 8, and they were talking about an 8-year time span. So it was like, well, where did these other kids come from, right?
Yeah, or maybe they could have just closed it when they say, "Are you coming to save us?" or something like that. And Garak
will be back.
And Garak says, "Are you the son of somebody important?" No. Then why are you talking to me about this?
Then I would have laughed, and it would have been hilarious. And then once again, the mark gets checked off. So I like the way you put a spin on that. Are you the son of somebody important? No.
And of course, Bashir says something like, "You're a jerk," and Garak says, "Thank you, my dear doctor."
Just plain simple Garak. Yeah, they do elongate their lines, and there's a certain way in which the Cardassians speak in this kind of rhythmic way. The melody of it is really intriguing. It draws you in, and it's interesting because it is kind of almost all the Cardassians that I see guest starring, and that's also because they're great actors. So I don't want to take anything away from that and just, put it on the makeup. These are great actors, but there's a way in which they talk, and it's so inviting and it's so grand and dramatic,
if somebody had never seen a Cardassian, but somehow had seen all the episodes with all the other aliens, and they said, "What are Cardassians like?" I'd say they're cunning and sinister like Romulans, but with the eloquence of the Vorta.
Yeah, with the eloquence of the Vorta.
The way they kind of deliver things in this grandiose fashion and kind of halfway say something, and you can't really take them on their word,
Yeah, it's it's like a closing argument for a good lawyer, But there's also another alien that was featured in this episode, the Dabo playing
Hellboy.
Yeah.
I was like, is that Hellboy?
What was that? What was going on with his head? And how come he wasn't, do you know anything more about him, Ryan? Because
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. The answer is no. But I did, because I was like, wow, that guy looks a lot like Hellboy. Like even the actor kind of did, but the fact that he had like those bumps on his head, like the butt head.
Yeah.
But I did look it up because I wanted to know at least what the alien was called. And we will answer that question right after the break. So we'll be right back with
what a tease.
Cirroc is pissed because we take like 4 hours in between.
What a tease.
We'll be right back with the 7th rule.